Hi there, welcome everyone. As you're joining, please feel free to introduce yourself in the Zoom chat. Tell us your name, where you're joining from, and what your role is. We'll give it a few moments here just as people are trickling in. Great. I'm based in Austin, Texas. I don't know if we have any other folks from Austin here, but yeah, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, name, where you're joining from, what your role is, and we'll kick it off shortly. Oh, awesome. Heather, joining from Denver. Welcome. Dr. Hawkins, okay, DEA, Washington, D.C., welcome. Imani, okay, customer experience, Prince George's County, excuse me, Maryland. Awesome, so we've got some East Coasters here. We've got more Maryland. I see Travis, Simon. We've got Washington State, awesome. Wisconsin, Arizona Department of Economic Security, Martha, welcome. Awesome. Well, we are so excited to have you all. Thank you so much for taking the time to join today. A big welcome also to those invited by our partners, Caresoft and Release Team. We are really looking forward today to talking about IT modernization and digital transformation. And we're going to leave you with some tips to help you reach your goals faster. But first, let's take a moment to introduce the team. My name's Alicia. I'm based in Austin, and I'm a product marketer at Lucid. I specialize in public sector and FedRAMP products. Now, I've had a diverse experience across the public sector, including as a U.S. Marshals contractor and a NAVSEA civilian. I also worked on a USAID innovation program while living in India. And I'm joined today by Chris Weber. Chris, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Thanks, Alicia, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Chris Weber, and I head up the public sector practice here. And I've been with the company now for just about 2.5 years, managing both state and local, federal, and our aerospace and defense customers. We've had an interesting journey as we've created this public sector organization here, and look forward to working with each one of you. Mark, if you'd like to give us some of your background. Welcome, Mark.
Hey everybody, my name is Mark Moomey. I'm a solution engineer here at Lucid. Been doing that for about 4 years now. Have a lot of experience in both the commercial and public sector, but not only at Lucid, also as a member of the Utah Army National Guard. I'm a UH-60 pilot for them. But I'll turn it back over to Alicia to get us started.
Great, and thank you both for being here. So before we get started, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. First off, this webinar is being recorded. You can expect an email with a link to that recording within a day or two. It'll be sent to the email you used to register for this webinar. That email will also include some additional resources, including a guide to digital transformation in the public sector and some examples of how other organizations have used Lucid as part of their cloud initiatives. So I encourage you to check those out when you get them. We love hearing from you during these webinars, so feel free to hop into the chat and share your thoughts and challenges that you've been experiencing so we can really all just learn together. Now, if you have any questions specifically for our Lucid team, please use the Q&A section. This is really going to help our Lucid team be able to stay on top of questions and answer as many as we can today. Now, finally, live captions are enabled for this webinar, so you can turn those on if you'd like. All right, well, with those reminders out of the way, let's get into it. So why are we here today even talking about modernization? Now, this conversation has been happening for years. Federal agencies and departments started making their first move to the cloud in earnest in about 2011 as part of an effort called Cloud First. But the push for digital transformation and modernization within the public sector has definitely accelerated this year. Since January, several executive orders have been issued with significant implications for the modernization of U.S. government software and IT legacy systems. Take, for example, the establishment of DOGE earlier this year. Given that this is a temporary organization, there really is an ongoing software modernization initiative to overhaul federal software, networks, infrastructure, and IT systems by July 2026. Now, with a focus on efficiency and productivity here, we've seen DOGE priorities also trickle down to the state level, with these state governments also being mindful of their budgeting and spending. On top of this, additional executive orders have been made to strengthen national cybersecurity. Federal agencies and departments must maintain higher security standards within their modernization and cloud optimization efforts. Now, whether your organization has been impacted by DOGE or other legislation, anyone in the public sector can benefit from digital transformation in a number of ways. So first off is better value. The adoption of multi-cloud technology allows agencies to get the best value through competitive purchasing of the leading technology that is offered today. So an example of this is when multiple cloud service providers are competing for the same work. The government can take advantage of a competitive marketplace that encourages innovation and lower costs. Making the move to cloud will also open up opportunities to implement emerging technologies, such as AI. Another benefit to highlight here is compliance readiness. This includes FedRAMP and GovRAMP requirements, as well as CMMC 2.0 for our government contractor partners. Then we get to a deprecation of legacy tools. So many agencies are still using outdated software, such as Microsoft Visio. In fact, of the government's $100 billion in annual IT spend, 80% goes to operating and maintaining existing systems. The older the systems are, the more the upkeep costs, and older systems are definitely more vulnerable to hackers. The last mention here is enhanced citizen experience and engagement. This has continued to be top of mind for state and federal agencies alike, and we see this play out by efforts to go paperless and provide citizens with a digital front door. Now, Chris, I know that modernization is a lot easier said than done, and despite all these potential benefits.
Yeah, for sure, Alicia. I'm sure that's why many of you have joined our webinar today. There's a lot of challenges that prevent agencies from experiencing the full benefits of modernization. So we want to know, what challenges do you face in your modernization efforts? Put your thoughts in the chat and we'll field some of these across some of the folks that are on the call today. And Alicia and Mark, if you want to call some of these out as they're coming in through chat as well, that would be helpful.
Yeah, resistance to change, absolutely. Silos, that's a huge one we hear. Interagency, intergenerational workforce as well, yes.
Funding
challenges, yes.
Always top of mind for folks, especially in lieu of what's been going on at the federal level. So yeah, these are just a couple of the topics. You know, we also hear from our customers complex initiatives that cross both federal and state and local government programs like SNAP and EBT, Medicare, Medicaid, and make it difficult to prioritize digitization opportunities. Hierarchical structures slow down decision making. Operating on legacy systems, 67% of government leaders say their agency's IT infrastructure is not built to handle emerging technologies, according to a survey from Ernst & Young. Low visibility into existing infrastructure and potential vulnerabilities, lack of documentation, or the work involved with maintaining documentation. Accurate, up-to-date information can remove a lot of rework or duplicative work. We'll walk through a few strategies for streamlining your modernization efforts and combating these challenges. But before we do, I think we should give a bit of background on Lucid and our approach to modernization. Alicia, I could turn things back over to you to give some more context here.
Absolutely. So today we want to show you the value of visual collaboration in modernization. Lucid is a work acceleration platform powered by visual collaboration. And we've seen firsthand how powerful solutions like Lucid are to modernization efforts. Visual collaboration gives teams a shared visual language to easily understand anything from a complex process flow to a current state architecture. By collaborating visually, teams can accelerate decision-making, and create dynamic living documentation that facilitates alignment. And the cool thing about Lucid is that we're the only platform of its kind. The Lucid Visual Collaboration Suite builds the foundation, combining virtual whiteboarding and intelligent diagramming into a single FedRAMP authorized solution. Teams can switch between Lucidspark for ideation, meeting facilitation, and planning, and Lucid Chart for visualizing processes and systems to cover the entire workflow of various initiatives. Now, on top of this core suite, organizations can add accelerators created to help you speed up large-scale change, such as agile transformation, cloud optimization, and process improvement. Mark will show some of these off today. Now, we know how effective Lucid can be for government agencies and contractors. There was a large public health agency we were working with whose modernization goals were delayed because they lacked the proper visibility into their architecture. They tried using SharePoint and Visio for diagramming, but the limited collaborative functionality made it really difficult to make sense of their data, to reach alignment, and identify how new features would even fit into existing systems. The agency transitioned from Visio to Lucid Chart for diagramming their processes and architecture. Because Lucid allows collaborators to edit in real time, the team eliminated versioning issues and centralized documentation. Lucid helped them gain visibility into their entire architecture, which allowed the DevOps team to make confident decisions quickly. With this improved clarity and collaboration, the agency was able to accelerate its modernization initiatives. To further increase efficiency and cost cuts, this agency used Lucid across other departments. For example, the Agile development teams use Lucid to support asynchronous collaboration and save 624 hours per year. The agency was also able to work 4 times more efficiently by diagramming key protocols within Lucid. Now, as we walk through our tips today, we'll show you how to use Lucid to simplify each step of the process. Without further ado, let's dive into our first tip. Chris, can you please kick us off?
I'd love to. Now, we know the modernization efforts are complex, with many different stakeholders weighing in on priorities. In fact, research from Deloitte shows that one of the greatest challenges governments face in digital transformation, regardless of digital maturity, is too many competing priorities. So our first tip is to collaboratively define and document your priorities and plan. What a better way to do this than with visuals. Mark, can you show us what this looks like in Lucid?
Yeah, of course. So for this tip, we're going to be hopping into Lucidspark. Lucidspark is our virtual whiteboard that really helps enable teams, both hybrid, remote, or even in office, gather around the same virtual space in order to not only capture their ideas regarding changes, initiatives, etc., but also align on them and come to a solid consensus. Lucidspark is an infinite canvas. It's as big or as small as you need it to be. And it gives you all the tools you need to host very collaborative sessions. Kind of a core feature and functionality of all of Lucid's products is going to be our ability to share documents out with other users. Now, when we share documents within Lucid, we aren't sharing a version of that document, a point in time. Rather, we're sharing a link to the live document, and we also can define different levels of permission that people will be able to use to access this document. All the way from kind of shared ownership, edit and share, down to view-only access is possible. Once we invite somebody to the board, if they jump into it, we'll see their cursor moving around, we'll see them adding content, they'll see what we're doing, and we really can have a collaborative experience. Lucidspark also has very collaboration-focused tools. Things like timers, voting sessions, private brainstorming modes, visual activities, and even facilitation tools for larger groups. In this example, I've invited a bunch of stakeholders onto this board, and we're going to be talking about ways that we're going to modernize this cloud application. How that might look is as they jump into the board, I might use my facilitation tools to draw them to a particular part of the board, use my laser pointer to talk about where we're going to be working, talk about the color coding system that I've set up with our piles of sticky notes here. And then once we're all ready to go, I can just click one button to start a 5-minute timer and people can get brainstorming. They can double click anywhere on the canvas to start a new sticky note or grab a sticky note from any of these shape bank piles. And it's really easy to capture ideas just by typing and hitting enter or tab for that matter. As that's happening, Lucid gives you the tools you need to organically gather feedback and organize these ideas. We always can react to any of these sticky notes with emojis, to capture that organic feedback or sentiment that people might have on these ideas. And we also can use customizable tags. These can align around priority, effort, team required, right? In this example, I just did some simple priority tags. But as we're going through these, people can tag out their ideas with how they feel they fit into our priorities. Let's say that 5-minute timer has expired and we're ready to organize our ideas. Lucid gives you all the tools you need to quickly and easily organize ideas into swim lanes or matrices. My favorite tool is actually our dynamic table. So if I select all the sticky notes I want to put into a dynamic table and select dynamic table, I can either make my own custom rows or columns that we can drag or drop sticky notes into, or these dynamic tables come with some presets for columns and rows. So in this example, I'm going to use tags as my column, those priority tags, to quickly create swim lanes. And then for rows, since we have a color coding system, I'm going to choose to organize by fill color. So quickly and easily, right, we can create an organized, easy to read matrix of all these ideas so that it's clear what lies where. And for items that don't have certain attributes set, all you need to do is drag or drop from section to section to either update, add, or change any of those attributes. Our next step in the process, now that we have a bunch of ideas and they are organized, would be to gain alignment on these ideas. Lucid gives you a few options in terms of how to do this, but one of the main ones that we have is the ability to run voting sessions. So in this example, this is a lot of high priority ideas. I want to narrow it down so that we're not trying to, tackle every single issue in the world at once. I might select those high priority ideas, come up here and create a voting session on them. In this example, I'll give everybody 3 votes so that they can choose their top 3 priorities out of all those high priorities. When I start voting, people will be prompted to join the voting session, and they each can give feedback and select their top 3 priorities. As a facilitator, I'll be able to see all those responses, and when we're ready, I can end that voting session and view the results. From there, if we need to make updates to how these are tagged or organized, we can just drag and drop once again from section to section to highlight that these 3 priorities are actually going to be our top priorities. Next comes the next step part of the process, right? So we have some high priority ideas here. What can Lucid do to help you plan out the work that needs to be done for these high priority ideas? One option that we have is the ability to convert these over into what we call Lucid Cards. Now, these are our own internal project management cards, but they can have descriptions, assignees, statuses, point estimates, and date ranges so that we can timeline these out, put them into a dynamic table themselves, and plan out the work that needs to be done. Once again, in a very drag and drop type motion. So, oops, let me back that up. So we can, take this timeline, for example, update date ranges just by dragging and dropping cards from section to section, do things like add milestones and today markers, even organize by, any of the attributes on these cards so that it's really clear how we're going to execute this work. Lucid, though, does give you other options for next steps, which include the ability to integrate with platforms like Jira for work management. So rather than converting these over into a Lucid card, I can take any sticky note or Lucid card, right-click on it, and say Convert to Jira Issue. Our integration with Jira is a very tight bidirectional integration that allows us to write to Jira as well as import from Jira. So I can convert any sticky note or group of sticky note over into Jira issues and have that become a new work item in the backlog of the project that I chose. But I also can get the ball rolling directly from Lucid by prioritizing, maybe getting it assigned out, and all without having to hop into Jira itself. Besides being able to create new work items, we always can import existing issues as well. So you can filter down by JQL query or any of our pre-built filters, select the range of Jira tickets that you want to bring in, and import them as loose cards. Now, these can be used in a variety of methods, right? Maybe we want to use it in a stand-up where each person's talking about their work items that they're tackling today. Maybe we want to put these into a timeline so that we can start to plan out when this work is going to be executed. We even can go as far as starting to dependency map between new issues, just drawing lines between them, selecting the dependency, the link type, and having it mapped out visually for us. So we never say that we'll ever replace a platform like Jira, but we definitely give you the flexibility that you need in order to visualize your work how you want to. Along with these integrations, we also make it really easy to gather feedback from people. We have what we call visual activities, and these come in a few basic flavors. But in essence, you're ranking ideas, right? Whether it be on a single axis, multiple axis, or even categorizing them. And we have our basic templates as well as some more filled out templates as well. One of my favorites is this impact versus effort matrix that I have here on the canvas. I can update the text to fit my needs, right? For our specific use case, our specific question that we want to ask. But from here, we can add any sort of content into this visual activity. So whether that's a sticky note, whether that's a Lucid card, whether that's a Jira work item, once we have the content that we want people to rank, I can save the changes and users can either start the activity for themselves. If we're in like a guided workshop session, I can start it for everybody as a facilitator, or I can gather asynchronous feedback by copying and sharing a direct link to this activity. Users are going to be in their own space, right? I'm not seeing what anyone else is doing, so we're avoiding group bias, leadership bias, etc. And I can rank these ideas where I feel they fit. Is this going to be a big bet, high impact and high effort? Is it something that's a little bit more incremental, right? Maybe not worth our time right now. Is it a money pit or is it an easy win? I can give my feedback and submit my responses, and then we can view results either as an average, an aggregate of all the responses, or individual responses as well. These can be fun. These can be more serious, right? We have a whole bunch of templates regarding both. One that I like to open up with a lot of the time is, like rate my mustache type stuff. So they're great for icebreakers, great for, gathering serious feedback as well. Another nice feature and functionality of Lucidspark is the ability to import Lucid chart diagrams. And we'll get into Lucid chart more in a second here, but you go to Lucid chart to build more detailed and finished documentation. We have the ability either to copy and paste, obviously, content from Lucid chart into Lucidspark, or straight up insert any document from that platform into Lucidspark as well. This allows us to hold review sessions. So in this example where we have, AWS architecture, everybody can go old school, get out the red pens, draw all over it, leave sticky notes as points of feedback, even go as far as convert those over into Jira issues as well. But yeah, Lucidspark and Lucid as a platform can really help drive alignment and give everybody a voice when it comes to the brainstorming and prioritization motion, I should say. There we go. Alicia, I'll pass it back to you for tip number 2.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. As a side note, visual activities has been a game changer for my team. This is how we collaboratively prioritize tasks and projects. We've even used this capability recently to get everyone's thoughts on naming a new feature within Lucid. So that one's great, as well as the effort versus impact matrix, also just to be clear on the priorities and what's going to make the most impact moving forward. So, but now on to our second tip, which is about visualizing your technical systems, both the current state and your desired future state. Visualization is key to gaining clarity into your systems, their relationships, and the impact of changes. Earlier this year, Lucid announced an exciting new add-on for the Lucid Suite, the Cloud Accelerator. Organizations can use this solution to create accurate, customizable cloud documentation to help teams understand and plan future changes to their cloud infrastructure. Mark, can you please show some of these capabilities in action?
Of course, Alicia. So to do that, I'm going to hop over to a Lucid chart diagram. Now, Lucid chart is that more detailed diagramming tool that I mentioned in the prior tip. While it's going to have, a lot more shape libraries at my disposal, a lot more formatting options, it's going to retain that same ability to be a very shareable and live document. So people can work together synchronously on these documents or asynchronously as well, even with the ability to leave comments and tasks for each other on this documentation. Diagramming Lucid is very drag and drop, right? I can select any of the shape libraries that I want to use in this left-hand panel by clicking on More Shapes. We have everything from, branded vendor libraries to more generic shapes as well. But just remember, if you can't find something you need in our standard libraries, you always have the ability to either import SVGs or Visio stencils and create your own custom libraries as well. These custom libraries are great because they not only can, be utilized by you, but you also can share these libraries out with others so that others can leverage, the work that you did in curating that shape library. Once we have our shape libraries selected, once again, very drag and drop to start building diagrams and documentation. You really can, create process examples, system architectures very quickly and easily within Lucid, even having the ability to templatize shapes and groups of shapes so you don't have to recreate the wheel every single time. In this example, we've documented out a process flow, right? How something will go from initialization all the way to completion. Now, while this may seem just like a pretty picture, Lucid also has advanced features and functionality that allow you to do things like integrate data and show those current and future states. In this example, we have several layers going on with different phases of how this process is going to change over time. These layers can either be toggled manually on or off from this layers menu here, but we also have the ability to set up shapes to serve as action buttons, toggling those layers on and off, or maybe even linking to separate pages, Lucid chart documents, or outside URLs altogether. This allows you to create very interactive documentation that is easy to navigate. With just a few button clicks, right, we can show how this process is going to be changing over time, how we're going to be integrating new technologies, how we're going to be modernizing this system, etc. If we have data that supports these diagrams and processes, we can always import that data, either through CSV, Excel type imports. We can bring in supporting data that outlines success criteria for each of these steps, metrics of each of these steps, and much more. In this example, we have a sheet that outlines metrics for each step of this process. Attaching data within Lucid is very simple. If I bring out a new shape here and go back to my data panel, I can just drag or drop a single cell or an entire row onto that shape. And then if I open up this right-hand contextual panel and go to data, I can see that attached data. What's nice is I either can insert that data as text directly on the shape, and that will enable dynamic text as well. If you go and replace this data set or update this data set, they'll automatically reflect on the linked shapes. Besides dynamic text, though, we also have the ability to do conditional formatting. So this is really nice because rather than having to display that data as text, we can highlight it as symbology directly on the canvas. So once again, each of these steps has a row of data attached. And I can toggle on and off those conditional formatting rules just by clicking on any of these shapes. So you can have rules that will dynamically highlight that background data, whether it's looking for potential problems, highlighting successes, all that is very possible. And the nicest part is if I go through and I update the data either manually by replacing the data set, or maybe if we have an API connection and update this data automatically, those icons, colors, etc. will update dynamically to reflect the current data. So it's really easy to have very up-to-date documentation that not only shows how something works, but also can help monitor it as well. Now, Lucid has more tools when it comes to diagramming cloud infrastructure and working with those environments. Like Alicia mentioned, right, our Cloud Accelerator enables us to automatically create cloud infrastructure diagrams. We can connect to AWS, Azure, and GCP either through role-based access or a script that you run in the CLI, then import the resulting JSON. But nothing on this diagram here that I'm looking at in the Cloud Accelerator was drag and dropped, placed manually, etc. This was all automatically done for me. So you can save a ton of time when it comes to documenting and diagramming out your cloud infrastructure and avoid the rework that's necessary every time that something changes. If you use a role-based access, it's really easy to automatically keep these diagrams up to date. You'll be able to create custom views, right, that highlight different portions of the structure. So in this example, I'm just looking at a summarized infrastructure view. It's a high-level overview of where each of these resources lie in the basic structure of AWS. I might have a more detailed infrastructure view that lists out resources by name, right? So we're starting to see actual data, actual names, actual, configuration fields that we need, that we brought in from AWS into this diagram. Maybe we have a security and compliance focused view that has our security groups displayed rather than VPCs and subnets. Maybe we want to create a view that's filtered down to just resources that carry the bare application tag. The picture I'm trying to paint here is that we are able to visualize your cloud infrastructure from multiple different perspectives and switch between them on the fly. One of the benefits of bringing in all this data into the Cloud Accelerator is also the ability to build out filters and conditional formatting rules against that data. So rather than clicking on each resource, either in the console of your cloud provider or within Lucid and looking through that configuration data manually, we can build out conditional formatting rules that highlight potential configuration issues automatically so that we can visually audit our environment. Excuse me, in this example, I have green check marks showing me that these S3 buckets are encrypted. I have warning symbols showing me which S3 buckets are public, and even a red X that shows when EC2 instances are not running. So it's really easy to highlight potential problems, issues, and then as those get remedied, resolved, etc., we can keep these diagrams up to date automatically for you. Another great feature is the ability to move over to Lucid Chart from the Cloud Accelerator. If I click Diagram with Lucid Chart and choose to export, that's going to take a snapshot of what we were just looking at in the Cloud Accelerator and copy it over to a new Lucid Chart diagram. Now, while this is a snapshot of that and disconnected from the data, now we can use this as the base for diagramming out maybe our future state. We can use all of our AWS or cloud shapes in order to show how we're going to change and update this over time, and then even go through the whole process of review by coming up to the top left-hand corner and switching tool sets and moving over to Lucidspark. Now we have all those collaboration tools at our disposal, so we can go through what I outlined earlier, marking these up, talking about what needs to be updated, changed, etc., capturing those ideas and changes on sticky notes, and then converting those over to places like Jira so that that work can be executed. Lucid can really give you that kind of end-to-end solution, especially when it comes to cloud infrastructure, where you go from visualizing your current state, planning the future state, reviewing it, ideating it, and planning out how that's going to change, and then documenting that new future state once again. If you're interested about learning more about the Cloud Accelerator, we're doing a full webinar on this add-on next week. You can register via the link that we'll put in the chat. Now I'll pass it to Chris for our final tip.
Thanks, Mark. It's a very powerful tool, and it's really going to help our customers really see and understand the impact of their connected parts of their environment. With that, it's time for our final tip, and this one's all about documentation. Documentation is one of the most important elements in aligning cross-functional teams and identifying new opportunities for automation, improvement, or digitization. During modernization projects, public sector teams need to document everything from internal processes and organizational structure to implementation plans and supporting systems. Without an easy way to create, maintain, and house all the documentation, it's easy to see how versioning issues, misunderstandings, and difficulty finding information could slow down important projects. That's why for digital transformation to succeed, agencies must prioritize ways to streamline their documentation process. Luckily, Lucid makes this really easy. In fact, we recently released a few new features designed specifically to help teams store and find documentation. Mark, can you walk us through an example of centralizing documentation in Lucid?
Of course, yeah. I'll do that by showing how we organize documentation in our documents page and how we can use team hubs to centralize documentation for either organizational or cross-functional teams. So within Lucid, every user will get access to a documents page. Now they can store their own documents and organize them into folders, subfolders, etc. These folders also can be shared out with other users or groups of users. And documents obviously can as well. Something that we released fairly recently, though, to help streamline the storage of this documentation and also the collaboration on that documentation is what we're calling Lucid Teams or Team Hubs. These Team Hubs are collections of users. So if I jump into this Padawan team here, we can see that we have 12 of my team members assigned to this Padawan team. What's great about adding users to teams is that it shares the ownership of documents within this team. So any document that I create personally, I can move into one of these teams, or if I click plus new and start something fresh, it'll go into this team automatically if I have it up. And rather than me individually owning that document, the team as a whole owns it. What's great about that is it streamlines that sharing process. So rather than me having to share out with these 12 individuals, separately, I can just drop the document in here and know that they'll have edit access to the document. What's nice as well, let's say that the team shifts, changes, or moves over time. Maybe somebody gets promoted and goes to a different team or leaves, our organization. We don't have to worry about their documents following them out because they, as an individual, don't own them. The team owns them. These team hubs give you all the same document organization tools that I mentioned with personal documents. So folders, subfolders, the ability to share those folders out with other individuals or teams as well. Some other things that are cool, though, if I come back to the team hub, is the ability to pin even outside resources as link pills up here at the top. So you can place links to all your commonly used tools directly within your Lucid Team Hub so that people can find and access them really nice and easy. And then the last feature I'll mention here when it comes to Team Hubs is the ability to have what we call a team space. These team spaces are pinned Lucidspark boards, and they can serve as overview or bulletin boards for this team. We might have the team structure captured here so that everybody's aligned in terms of everyone's role and function, so on and so forth. We've captured our mission and vision statement. We've captured our KPIs, maybe our OKRs, as well as a timeline for this project and how it's going to happen. Think of this as like the place that everybody can go at the start of their day or when they need to find information to find it laid out visually for them to use. What's great about these teams as well is when you create a team, it creates a sharing target. So Padawan team here, right? Rather than having to come into my Lucid document and type in all 12 members of that Padawan team, I can just type it in and share with that team as a collective. Another really nice feature is the discoverability of these teams. If I click on this top left button and come down to create a team, this will show the different types of teams that we're able to create within Lucid. So we can have an open team that's discoverable and accessible by everybody else. We can have a closed team that is discoverable, but invite only, or a hidden team that is hidden from the team list as well as invite only. So you can, set up your team how it in the way that it makes sense for your use case. For teams that are discoverable, any user can come into their top left button here and click on all teams and see a list of any of those discoverable teams. Any team that's open, people will be able to join automatically and access the document within that team. And those closed teams, we can see that there's a button to ask to join. These can be very organizationally focused, right? Around a department, a specific organizational team, but we've seen a lot of success with them being initiative focused with cross-functional teams in them as well. The creation and management of these teams also in our admin settings can be everything from totally user-led to very admin-led and prescriptive. Other features that we have in order to centralize documentation include our Agile Accelerator. Now, it's titled the Agile Accelerator. It's very applicable to a lot of different teams, though, besides just Agile teams. It'll give you the ability to build blueprints, which are collections of templates that you can assign to teams so that they can use it. Think, all the documentation you want filled out for a specific IT project or a sprint or, a program increment, that sort of thing. You'll be able to organize these teams as well as, ask them to give you insights, think confidence votes, feedback, that sort of thing can all be rolled up to a central panel for managers to see as well. Another accelerator that we have is called the Process Accelerator. This Process Accelerator is going to allow us to create repositories of documentation that are accessible and view only to a very large audience. These repositories will have the ability to have published versions of documents as well as drafts that are hidden from anybody who doesn't have access to those drafts, as well as approval flows for drafts of documents so that that anything going into that repository that's visible to the larger organization has been approved and vetted by repository owners. Both of these tools will really help streamline and enable document sharing and collaboration within your Lucid environment. Along with everything that I've mentioned today as well, we have an excellent ProServe team here at Lucid who can be who can serve as consultants in your Lucid journey. They can do everything from large trainings to very prescriptive template building, document building, etc. So you don't have to worry about, doing this all on your own. Lucid has the resources that you need in order to, hit the ground running. We also have a lot of self-serve options as well in our education center. Everything from the latest product updates to training labs for individual users to use that are included as part of your license and self-serve totally free. So know that, from a self-serve perspective, you have the resources you need, as well as a professional services perspective. We have the team, that can help really kickstart your Lucid initiatives. Alicia, I'll hand it back over to you, though, to wrap things up.
I love it. Okay, so those are our recommendations for simplifying your modernization efforts. So use visuals to align across silos and make decisions on priorities and plans. Map out the current and future state of your systems to clarify the complexity, and create a single source of truth for all documentation to stay aligned throughout the entire process. Now, if you'd like to learn more, we have a few resources for you that we'll go ahead and drop into the chat. First up, we have the Digital Transformation Guide. This guide contains much of what we talked about today with clear steps to help you simplify your modernization process. We're also dropping 6 ways to use Lucid for your cloud initiatives. This article gives real-world stories of how other organizations have leveraged Lucid as they have moved to the cloud or optimized their cloud infrastructure. So we hope you now have some solid ideas for simplifying your modernization process. If you're interested in learning more about Lucid for the public sector, reach out to our partners, Caresoft and Release Team, or you can fill out the form we'll drop in the chat so that you can connect with our Lucid sales team. Now, before we close out, we do have some time for a Q&A. So we'll go ahead and start shifting. Let me pull up. Okay, so first one up, first question. We talked about 3 modernization tips with the Lucid Suite, but can you walk me through some of the other ways public sector customers are using Lucid? Yes, and great question. That's the really great thing about the Lucid product suite is it can actually fit a lot of your day-to-day use cases that you might face. Your current workflows, everything from visualizing technical systems, dashboarding, note-taking, and really a lot more is possible in this Lucid suite we showed you today. And this is all while giving you the ability to set up a single source of truth for groups of all sizes. All right, let's see what we've got next. We've got, what other tools does Lucid integrate with? This is great, especially, on your teams, you're going to know what are your critical integrations. So I will say that integrations do vary between our commercial and FedRAMP environments. So Jira and Confluence are available for Lucid Gov Suite. Those are heavily used. Our public sector customers love those, especially the bidirectional sync. And then if there is an integration that is not available that you'd like, we also have the developer platform that's available to you all to build custom apps, whether it's shapes or other integrations. Okay, let's see what we have next. Can Lucid Chart and Lucidspark work hand in hand when it comes to updates? Want to open it up to my teammates in case you wanted to answer. Can Lucid Chart and Lucidspark work hand in hand when it comes to updates? I mean, Mark gave an example here. I don't know, Mark, if you want to build on that one.
Yeah. So you have the ability to toggle back and forth between the two tool sets on demand. So whatever sort of use case you want, right? Whether it's that more collaborative use case that Lucidspark supports, or that more diagramming focused use case, it's really easy to use either of them to update a document or diagram that you might have. Also, we've seen customers get really creative with solutions, right? So if they want to integrate data into what is a Lucid Spark board, right, they can swap over to Lucid Chart real quick, import that data, attach to some shapes, maybe build out some conditional formatting rules on it. Vice versa, our roadmap or timeline shape in Lucidspark is really smart and easy to use. And so we've seen people integrate that into diagrams that they've built in Lucid Chart, once again, just by going up to the top left corner and swapping back to Lucidspark in order to snag that shape in that tool.
Awesome. Mark, another one for you. So does Lucid support importing templates like a technical diagram with firewalls, servers, and data flow?
We definitely do. So there's a few ways we can do this, right? We have the ability to import from a variety of sources, Visio, Miro, Mural being some of them. Any document also can be turned into a template by coming up to the 3-line menu here and saying convert to template. That's great for creating frameworks. We give you a lot of standard templates to serve as, jumping off points that you don't have to build yourself at all. But just know if you modify or import a document or create something from scratch that you want to use as a template, you're going to have the ability to convert it to a template that, either can be just for you, you can share it out with other users, or an admin can say, hey, this is broadly applicable to everybody. Let's make it a corporate template. So there's a lot of options there when it comes to templatizing the documentation.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's so many readily available templates that a lot of customers are so excited that they can just get in and day one start leveraging them. A next one came in. Can you please explain how Lucidspark can be used as a project update tool, or if this is even possible? I would like to understand to look into one place for multiple projects. So can you explain how Lucidspark can be used as a project update tool, one place for multiple projects?
Yeah, for sure. There's a few ways, that this might be accomplished. But we got to think, well, what helps is to think of Lucidspark as the middle ground, right, for a lot of these different systems that you might be using to manage projects. You have the ability to import Jira tickets. There's more integrations on our non-FedRAMP side as well. Or you can, copy and paste content from a variety of sources to include things like PDFs, text, Word, Google Documents, Sheets, etc. What we've seen users do is aggregate all data from all those sources, or products from all those sources into Lucid, and use Lucid as the presentation tool for that. So you'll have a dedicated presentation mode where you can jump from resource to resource, or like we've been doing here, right, with our paths between frames, is a nice way to present as well. But you basically will be able to organize resources or artifacts from a lot of different places very visually on a a visual canvas like Lucidspark, and then present that in a way that makes sense.
Great. Another one just came in. Template creations are produced only in Lucidspark or Lucid chart format. So Lucidspark and Lucid chart, the answer is both. So customized templates can be created in both Lucidspark and Lucid chart. And then there's customized ones, and then there's also readily available templates. Mark, did you want to add anything there? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll add one thing. What's really nice about our templates is while they might have the Lucid chart logo or the Lucidspark logo, you can insert these or use these in either product. That's due to our universal canvas functionality, basically that ability to switch back and forth if I come up to the top left-hand corner. But what I really like to do with templates is treat them more as components than anything else. Let me jump over to this real quick. So if I wanted to insert maybe a agile template into this broader board, right? Say like a task estimation activity, I could just click use, and rather than starting a whole new document, I'm just inserting that piece of the pie into a larger board. So you can kind of chain them together to serve more as, once again, components rather than individual documents.
Great. Another on the template theme here. Can the templates produced in Lucid be converted into another document or use with Microsoft? So can templates be converted?
So templates in and of themselves are more of like a Lucid specific artifact. But if you use a template to create a Lucid document, on the non-FedRAMP side, we do have a lot of great integrations with Microsoft that allow you to like insert an embedded copy of that document into like a Word document, for example, or a PowerPoint presentation. What's nice about using that integration is it's one click to update the image or the picture of the document to its latest version, so you don't have to continuously like copy and paste or snip images. But we do have common export options as well for both Lucid, Spark, and Chart. So you can go to PDF, PNG, and go a more traditional route of embedding placing images of these documents, versions of these documents into those platforms as well. We don't have I saw that you called out Microsoft Forms specifically. We don't have an integration with Microsoft Forms on either the FedRAMP or the commercial side yet.
Great. We've got a couple more minutes left before we wrap up. So if you have any last minute questions, put them in the Q&A. Next up is there also a Lucid community of practice where new users can reach out to SMEs for other Lucid areas and reuse cool templates?
Yeah, I'll hit that one real quick as well. In the bottom right of any of our products will be this little question mark with a circle. If you select that, right, that will give you a nice quick link over to our community. Our community has Lucid experts on tap, ready to go to answer questions, help you with problems you might be facing, and you also can connect with Lucid Power users from our broader community as well. So definitely come in here, check it out. We have a lot of great sections, a lot of great feedback, a lot of articles that you can reference, and also, of course, the ability to pose your own questions or thoughts.
Thank you, Mark. I'll give it a few more moments before we come to a close here. Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you all again today for joining us. We were really happy to have you, and look out for that email coming your way. Have a great day.